The numbers don't lie, and the numbers of food inflation in comparison with Canada's general inflation don't lie either. In August alone, general inflation rose by 1.6%, while food prices rose by 3.5%. Hello, my name is Leah Mushett. I'm a reporter here at the Western Standard, and today I sat down with Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, also known as the food professor, who went into what he believes is a policy-driven issue that is causing the food prices to rise for Canadians. Can you explain why it is that you said the two biggest factors was the GST holiday that was back in December and up until February, I'm pretty sure.
February 15th. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And also the Ottawa counter tariffs as well, contributing the most to the inflated food prices. So how does it work exactly? Walk us through that a bit.
Well, both were policy decisions that I personally opposed. Obviously, in December when I testified before Senate against it, I was concerned about opportunity pricing, which means that whenever a tax vanishes for a while, typically you see prices cover that spread. And then when taxes come back, they're slapped on higher prices. That's what we saw in 2007 and 2008 when the GST was reduced by 1% twice. We were expecting inflation to drop, but inflation actually went up. Why? Because, well, retailers were motivated thinking, well, we'll just take over that 1%, essentially. And that's kind of what happened. And so what I've advised the government is if you are to play around with retail prices, you want to make decisions at least permanently. So it was much worse than to do nothing, the GST holiday. And we saw that in the numbers from March and April, clearly. And again, it's not just people are saying, well, as groceries, very few products are taxed at the grocery store. The problem is that when you actually see a few items go up, you tend to see a tide effect. Everything goes up at the same time. So whether it's in food service or retail, so that was the one piece that I was concerned about, and I think actually contributed to a higher food inflation rate. And the other issue, of course, are counter tariffs. We are the only country in the world that have actually responded to the Americans with counter tariffs, other than China. And we actually were in breach of CUSMA. We actually did apply counter tariffs on a variety of different products, and nobody really paid attention. And politicians downplayed that quite a bit, and the media just bought into it. They just bought into the narrative presented by Ottawa until the U.S. ambassador to Canada this summer acknowledged that Canada was actually in breach, and we were tariffing a lot of products that are supposed to be exempt. And so a lot of sections of the grocery store were impacted by counter tariffs. And so we were expecting a higher food inflation rate in August as a result of that. But all of these counter tariffs were paused on September 1st. So we are expecting food inflation to ease as we start the fourth quarter of 2025. So that's the good news.
Okay. On the thing you were talking about for the GST holiday thing, and then you said the retailers are then having an incentive to increase the 1% that obviously the GST was taking off. So are you saying for example, if one retailer does it, most retailers are gonna start doing it too? It's kind of like a trend?
Yes, absolutely. So as soon as you disrupt market conditions with policy or through policy, you bring two things to the market: uncertainty and a negative impact, penalizing consumers essentially, because companies and private sector players will always hedge against uncertainty. That's so if you buy ingredients and you know that your ingredients will become more expensive, or if you know that the market actually is getting more expensive, you're just going to play prices overall. So
Hmm.
That's the danger of impacting or influencing market conditions over time. And that's exactly what we've seen with Ottawa the last decade or so. My guess with Mark Carney, uh, since he's an economist, he knows all this. And so since he's been in power, you can see that there's a bit of a change in approach. I don't think we would have seen a GST holiday, and I don't think we would have seen counter tariffs as a result of as with Mark Carney as Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau just didn't understand border economics. He didn't understand inflation or how things work. So I think the industry, and I've spoken to quite a few leaders in the industry, were I mean, a lot of people are still nervous, obviously, because of what's happening in Washington, but we're much less nervous uh, by Ottawa in general, because some of the decisions were unfortunately not strong in the last, I'd say, 6 months or so.
Okay. Well, on that note, you also said in one of your X posts that you don't expect, well, lots of experts also don't expect the food prices out. Oh no, it was beef prices specifically as well to
Yeah.
stabilize until 2027. So, like,
Yes.
why is it going to take like, well, I guess it's not exactly 2 years, but like that long for it to stabilize?
Uh, we actually have seen this picture before in 2014. There was a drought impacting the cattle industry. When a drought impacts a market, typically feed costs go up, and the cost to feed one cow per day at maturity is $75 a day. So you want to get rid of them. And so that's exactly what happened in 2014. And inventories became quite low. There was a jump in prices. This time around, it's a little different for two reasons. One, the drought actually impacted about 18 months ago, 24 to 18 months ago, a larger portion of North America. So people sold off their herds. The problem is that they're cashing out. A lot of producers are cashing out, so there's less production going on right now around North America. So our herd size is the same right now as it was back in 1989. In the U.S., it's the same as it was back in 1951. So if you're a beef lover out there, it's going to be tough for a while. Yeah, no pun. Yeah.
I was
But
actually,
there's actually, the thing is that there's actually Mexican beef and Australian beef on the market right now, and Mexican beef is actually tougher, not as tender,
uh,
comes from older animals, basically.
uh-huh.
So the Australian beef is actually, in my view, much better. Actually, I've tried it. It's actually not bad, and it's actually cheaper. So you just have to look for it. But there are deals out there, but most of these deals are Australian beef.
Australian. Okay, that's also kind of another question I had because I was looking at like the stats can, like they were saying like strip loin had increased. I think it was like from my math, it was like 16% from June to July. And you wrote in your X post also that in June, from the start of January 2025 to June 2025, there was like a 34.2% increase in strip line. Okay. Yeah, so for those ones, but then there was like a different cut, and I'm pretty sure it's like a more expensive cut. I can't recall right now, but it was like it decreased, I think, by like 1% or something. So is it because like because I know like strip loin and sirloin, for example, are like really popular cuts. I feel
Yeah,
like
they are.
affordable. Yeah.
They're the most popular premium cuts. Yes.
Exactly. So then I was wondering, did also the fact that like most people are buying those ones have like a contributing factor to why it also increased because of like the demand for it as well?
Well, demand is still strong. It's just people aren't buying as much in volume, I guess. They're a little bit more careful. And because prices are, well, really high. And so there is a higher conversion rate between beef and pork and beef and chicken as well, because people are looking for animal proteins. In fact, um, you can see that the entire food industry is recognizing this as an opportunity, because you're starting to see proteins in all sorts of things, even coffee or breakfast cereals. Why? Because animal proteins are becoming more expensive. 40% of the money you spend at the grocery store um, is spent on animal proteins like dairy and meat, and so that 40% became more expensive. So people are looking elsewhere for their protein fix, if you will.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. Um, okay, I have another question about like the tariff policies that you said all obviously also contributed to the rising cost of food. Do you think without these policies like ever put in place from the beginning of the tariff war that we were having with the US, if they hadn't been put in place, do you think we'd be in the same position we are now?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm puzzled by how politicians are minimizing the impact of counter tariffs at the grocery store, and how media also, to a certain extent, is not recognizing this at all. Yesterday, when CPI numbers came out, they focused basically on meat because meat was a climate change issue, which is true. But the vast majority of items that have gone up, confectionery, sugar, uh, uh, cookies, crackers, pasta, sauces, spices, nuts, citrus. There's a long list of products that were tariffs. I mean, all of these things are up 5 to 24%, coffee, tea included. And so and actually the highest item was coffee at 22.4%. And nobody was talking about it yesterday because it's linked to a very, very politicized policy decision, which were counter tariffs.
Hmm. Okay, yeah. Damn. So I guess
Yeah, but
yeah.
you're media, but you're the Western standard, so you're not biased. At least I think.
I mean, we're probably biased in our own ways, but like,
Well, your bias is just your. I mean, the problem right now is that every single media outlet are extremely careful
Mm,
not to avoid politicized issues, and
yeah.
inflation is one of them. Counter tariffs are one of them. A lot of people believe that counter tariffs were necessary to go up against Trump, the Trump regime, and I've always believed that there are other ways to work with the United States or send signals, but counter tariffs and taxing your own people is certainly not a good idea.
Well, at least not for food prices for sure.
No,
So,
because margins are so low. I mean, that's the difference between food and other things that you're tariffing, is that in food, there's just no margin of error. You basically have to adjust prices very quickly. And
mm,
so we were expecting the CPI to reflect that decision very quickly as well.
hmm. Um, well, let's see what I have that I also wanted to ask you here. Yeah, okay. So I remember I kind of asked you this like on like another article I was doing for like the steak like picture one. And you were telling me that you're not certain as to why like beef prices in particular is so expensive in Canada, because even you said in comparison to the US, like our prices for beef are much higher. So like what's your like best hypothesis as to why this is? Like if you could, yeah, just given all the stuff you know.
My best hypothesis
Yeah.
as to
As to why it's like, for example, why is it more expensive, I guess, than the US? And then also just like, yeah,
in beef.
yes.
Well, yeah, I have a strong hypothesis. I mean, I do think there's something going on with processing, packing.
Mm,
The White House actually went after national beef, Tyson, GBS, Cargill, and then they ended up writing checks. to stay away from courts.
Hmm.
And that pressure doesn't exist in Canada. And right now, beef packing is controlled by two privately owned companies, Cargill and GBS. Nobody has access to their books. So you tell me, so farmers are making more money. Obviously, don't get me wrong, they're making good money.
Mm-hmm.
But what about Cargill and GBS? I mean, that what's going on there? So there's just no clarity there, and I'm concerned. I'm concerned. The point I was making on X is something is going on here, and yeah. So I think it's long overdue. I mean, we just actually we're still dealing with the bread price fixing scandal, and the investigation is still ongoing after 10 years. Uh, I don't think we actually take some of these cases very seriously, and that's damaging for the industry's reputation for sure. Because everyone is saying, well, Loblaw is responsible for high prices, and Sobeys is responsible for high prices. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Mm. Um, is there more? So there's probably more packaging like companies in the US for beef, right?
Of course, they are. There are more players, but there's it's still an oligopoly in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
As it is in Canada. Yeah.
Okay, so probably I would say from like what I'm hearing you speak right now, it's probably a contributing factor is the fact that it's owned by so few people or companies.
I would say so. And the other thing, when people actually are accusing retailers of gouging, I immediately call them out because there's just no evidence. All these companies are publicly traded. You can look at their gross margins, look at same store food sales, look at there are several metrics we have access to. But for GBS and Cargill, you can't.
Hmm.
You just
Wow,
can't.
that's kind of crazy. Well, yeah.
Well, it's I mean it's been like that for a long time. It's just when food inflation becomes a problem, you want some answers.
Yeah, so then they should probably get more attention put on them.
I would say so.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.